Hello all my JavaScript friends, this is TheVirtuoid, aka Mike Smith, and this is our racing game. In this video we're going to be taking a look at unit tests, how I build unit tests, how I use them to be able to create my classes, and generally the overall design of my unit tests. So let's just go ahead and get straight into it. Now, as you know, a unit test basically allows us to test certain functions or certain properties within each classes to make sure it gives us exactly what we're looking for. So, for example, here in my game unit test, I expect, for example, in this particular example down here, let me make sure it's on the screen, there it is, that if I issue a getVenue method, that it should be able to return a particular venue by the venue ID. Or if I do a getVenue method, it should return undefined if the venue ID is not found. So this is the whole purpose of unit test. I can test all of my different methods that I expect to occur on a particular object. I can also test properties. Let me go back up here. I can just test properties, make sure that the properties are actually there if I expect certain properties to be done. So each individual class, as you can see on the left-hand side here, let me go all the way down here. There it is on the screen, gets its own test. Here's the car one. Here's some database ones, which we'll see here in just a minute. Here's the database for the models. Here's the game we were just looking at. Here's the one for the layout we were just looking at. Here's the one for the track, and here's the one for the venues. It's still on the screen. Yay, it's still on the screen. So that is basically the structure of how I structure. That's basically the structure of the structure. Yeah, that's basically how I code all of my unit tests. Everything is specifically targeted toward one particular class. That just makes testing a whole lot easier. I don't want to test all of everything within one test. I want to be able to say, hey, if I'm going to change something to the venue, I expect to test everything inside the venue, or I expect to test everything inside the car data, and so on and so forth. So let's take a quick look at one of the properties here. For instance, what we're going to be taking a look at here in particular is my car one. And the car one is very, very simple. The idea within the car here is that we have a certain structure of the car. It's going to have an ID. It's going to have a name. In fact, let's just go through it here real quick. I've set it up here to where it's going to have an ID. It's going to have a name. It's going to have a description. It's going to have a model ID, which will point toward the model of the car. It's going to have a model itself, and that's if the model has been loaded up or not. It's going to have a front axle. It's going to have a rear axle, a front left wheel, a front right wheel, a rear left wheel, and a rear right wheel. Then that's basically checking, that section just basically checks to find out, if I have the correct properties. This section right here allows me to set up the properties upon initialization. And that is, if I wanted to initialize the car, then once I initialize the car, I want to make sure that that data actually gets passed to where I want to be able to pass. Then when I start to work with the methods, and luckily with the car here, there's not a whole lot of methods. This before each section allows me to be able to say, before each of these tests are executed, I want you to run this particular code. That allows me to make sure I have a clean copy of the car method at all times. If I didn't do that, if I, let's say, initialized it at the very beginning here, then that means that once I get finished with my very first test, anything that it did to the car object will still be there, and that can mess up other tests. So the idea behind this before each is to always make sure that you have a clean copy of whatever object you're planning to test. So in this case, yeah, I'm going to have a clean copy of car each and every single time that I test. Let's just make sure I can get everything on the screen here. Now, there's not a whole lot of, excuse me. Now, there's not a whole lot of methods there is on the car currently, and this basically has just one method, in this case, getModel. And this getModel allows us to say, hey, I've got a particular model ID. I want you to go out to the database and go get that model. And that's what this does here, is that if no arguments, I've got basically two ways to be able to do this model one. I get one without an argument and with an argument. If I don't have an argument, it's going to take the model ID that I've passed and use that as the ID of the model. If I do pass it an argument, then it's going to replace the model ID of the car with the model ID that I've specified here. So when I do the get model here, it's just going to do a get model. I should expect my model to be an instance of model data. Model data is my base class that I have for the models, and I should expect my car model to equal model. So basically the model that I get back here should be equal to the model that's stored inside the car. If I pass it a ID here, then I should expect the same thing, that the model should be equal to model, but I should now also expect that the model ID for the car should be equal to the ID that I've set here. And then of course also if I happen to set the if I happen to pass it a bad ID, then I should be get back something that's undefined, and I should expect my car model not to change. And by default my car model is null, so I should expect it to stay null. So that's basically all there is to the car. It's very simple. And again, one of the things you want to think about when you do unit testing is that you don't have to have a full and complete design. I can guarantee you that this is not a full and complete design of my car. I know it for an absolute fact. But as I get into designing the racing game, as I get further along into it and I start working with the cars, I'm going to realize there might be other methods or other properties. When that happens, what I will do is I will come into this unit test and I will add that unit test here first. I'm going to run the unit test. I'm going to watch it fail. Once it fails, then I'm going to go to the car class, and then I'm going to run the car class and make the fixes until the test is complete. So for example, we're going to run this test here in just a second, and I expect everything to fail pretty much because there's absolutely nothing inside of my car class. Now don't worry, you're not going to sit here and watch me type absolutely everything. I do actually have it all within a text file here. So we're going to make this a little fast for you so you don't be bored and watching me type everything. But let's go ahead and get our test started. And the first thing we're going to want to do is we're going to want to bring up our PowerShell. And I happen to have a PowerShell that is already, let me see if I can get that up on the screen. I'm not going to be able to get it on the screen. No. Can you do it? Can you do it? Can you do it? Oh yeah, just barely. Yeah, got it up on the screen. Cool. So I've got already one started up here. I'm going to run npm run test tdd. This is something that is defined inside package.json. In fact, let me show that to you here real quick, just for funsies. Inside my package.json within the wrong package.json. Let's try that again. That's my monorepo package.json. Let's get to the racing game package.json. There we go. Okay, so we have a test TDD, which allows me to run it interactively in my unit test. I have my test CI, TDD CI, that allows me to run it manual, let it run automatically so I don't have to sit there and babysit it. Then I also have BDD testing, which is used for our E2E testing, and that's using Cucumber, which is in another video. And so we'll get to that one, like I said, in another video. But that is where, let me get everything back here. That is where the that is where this run test.tdd comes from. So once we start that up, let's go over to our other screen. Because once we start that up, it's going to show up on this screen. Okay, I've just hit enter, and there it is. Welcome to Cypress. So we're going to go to EDE testing. We're going to click on EDE testing. It's going to say choose a browser. We're going to choose Chrome because, you know, why not? We choose Chrome, and it's going to go full screen on us. I don't like it being full screen, but that's just the way it is. So here are all of our different tests that we have, that we've been working on. And you can tell I've got a whole bunch of them already defined here: car, game, layout, track, venue, all the database ones for the car DB, the model DB, and the venue DB. No big deal. So let's run the car one. That's what we're looking at here. We should expect a whole bunch of them to fail. And on the left-hand side there, you're going to see the failures that will occur with the TDD. On the right-hand side, you're going to see any of the default pages. Now, of course, we don't see the default pages there because, you know, there are no pages associated with this. This is a TDD type situation. And it might be a little bit difficult to read that. So let me see if I can zoom in a little bit on the ones that are on the left-hand side. So one moment. Okie dokie, there. I've kind of zoomed in now a little bit more so it'd be a little bit easier to see. Of course, we can't see every single one of them. But the key here is, if notice right up here, we've had 1 success and 15 failures. Now, how do we have a success? Because I said, you know, we shouldn't have any successes. Well, it should initialize the class, and that's correct because we at least had, if we go back to the other screen, full screen 1, oh, let's get that off the screen. We at least had the class defined, so therefore, hey, that test worked out perfectly okay. Everything else bombed out on us. And here's a simple example. I expect an undefined to be a string in car.js in line 27. So it shows you here, let me just as an example here, let me bring that up on the screen. It kind of gives you what the error is right there. And it gives you where it is, where it's located. And then actually in this little screen here, it shows you exactly what expectation was fired on in which it didn't know what to do. Like for in this case, I should have had a name property, but it said car.name to be a string, and it's not. It actually came in as undefined. It came in as undefined because we don't have it defined. So let's start working with the property ones here, where it says, let's make sure these are on the screen. I almost got it almost too big here. So let's see, this should be, when I work with the properties, we're missing the ID one. We're missing the name one. We're missing description. We're missing a model ID. So we got those four. So let's pop that code in there. Let's go back over to our code and let's get those in there. Okay, and through the magic of television, there is our new car. We've got the ID, the name and description, and model ID. We have them where it's loaded in from the constructor, and we have getter routines for each and every single one of them. Let me see if I can get that on the screen fully there. Hold on one second. That's one of the reasons having a zoom in screen here is that I have to hit extra enters to get it up on the screen. So there's our four there. So this should satisfy those four that we took a look at earlier. So let's now go back over to our full screen. And once we save, which the WebStorm ID automatically saves when it loses focus, so it automatically saves, so it automatically ran everything again. Notice now that we have 6 that are okay. Before we had only 1. Now we have 6 that are okay and 10 that are failing. And we now have, yes, it says we now have an ID property, we have a name, we have a description, a model ID, and we do not have a model property. So it's saying we don't have a model property. We should have a front axle property. We should have a rear axle property, front wheel property, front right wheel property, rear left wheel property, rear right wheel property, and should allow the settings of properties upon initialization. That one worked out because we did have that. So let's go back to our code. Now as you can tell there, we're better, but now we're still missing some of the things. So now let's go back to our code and get those other properties done. So give me 1 minute. Let's get that done. Okay, and through the magic of television, it is all finished up and done. So we've added the frame and the chassis. So what's the frame and the chassis? Well, this contains all the information I have about the frame itself, which is the model, and the chassis, and the information about the axles and the wheels and stuff like that. The only thing here is that obviously I don't have properties for the front left wheel, right left wheel, back left wheel, whatever. So what I've done on my getter routines is I've gone straight into the frame, like for the model here, or I've gone straight into the chassis for the axles and the wheels. And yeah, there it is all right there. So in this particular case, I don't, as somebody who's going to be developing against this, I don't want to sit there and say, give me, car.chassis.wheels.front right wheel. Just give me the front right wheel. Give me the rear left wheel, So I'm just going to go ahead and go straight point to it. I don't need to go to the chassis. Let's just go straight to the wheel. So I've done that. Let's save it off and let's go over to our other screen and see what it said has now happened. Well, looky here. Now we're a lot better shape. Now we have 13 successful tests. The only thing we're missing right now is when I work with the methods. So you see how all this is working? I first started with tests with having nothing working. And now slowly but surely, I'm starting to get all of my tests with the nice little green lights. So all we have left to do now is the get model. Get model is not a function. Get model is not a function. Get model is not a function. All this is get model is not a function. So let's get that model as a function. Let's flip back over to our full screen. And now through the magic of television, let's go ahead and pop that new code on. And through the magic of television, there we are. All I've done now is just add in the get model up there, and I've made an absolute test of how first I needed to make sure I tested to, if I've already have a model set, I'm just going to return the model. There's no need to read in the new model. Otherwise, I'm going to get the model from the model database. and then test everything, and then do all the testing here. If I can't find it, I'm going to return undefined. If I do find it, I'm going to return model. So notice it's got a little squiggly underneath it because it's missing the import. So we're going to import, and that's going to give us a line way at the very top there saying import from our databases. This is the databases that we are connecting with. I have databases for cars, for models, for venues, for layouts, things like that. We're not going to cover that in this video, but that should cover our entire car. So let's save it. And once we save it, let's flip over to the other screen. And yes, indeedy, look at that. 16 successes, no failures. Isn't that look good? And we have all green. Yep, there we go. All the green is now on the screen. So you can see all 16 different variations there on the screen. So that's basically really what you want to do with all the unit tests. Is you will need to create your unit test first, create an empty class, test it, and run it. And how do you design initially the unit test? Let's flip back over to the full screen itself. I want to show you one that the only last one I have not working with, which I haven't written the test with yet, and that happens to be on the track one. So this was very simple. You know, when I work with the track section, I should return to the instance, no big deal. When I work with the properties, this is kind of how I do things. I will work with the properties first, and I'm going to say, well, here's what the properties should be done. And when I work with the methods, these are the different types of methods I decide to have on the track. When I work with the common attributes, these are attributes that are common to each particular individual track piece, starting position, ending positions. When I work with the type straight attributes, those have certain attributes. When I work with the type equals curve, when I work with the type equals anchor, which you're not seeing on the screen, when I work with the type equal anchor, when I work with the type equals start line, and finally when I work with the type equals finish. So I've gotten everything. I haven't written the code yet for it, but I've gotten absolutely everything here on how I want, or the different things that I want to test. And this is actually the first thing I'll do. I don't sit here and write the test. I sit here and write the different its. I just put everything in here to make sure I have it in my brain, the things I want to test for. Is this all encompassing? No. And that's the thing you really need to remember more than anything else, is that you want to start with your unit test with the things you want to actually test within your design, knowing full good and well that as you work on the game, your design is going to change. And once it changes, you want to come back inside here and you want to add a unit test, test it, and then make changes to your JavaScript file. So again, you know, if I happen to have a new type, I will put that new type down inside here. You can't see that. If I have a new type, I would put that type down inside there and just add on to it. That's the important thing about unit test. And again, I can't emphasize this more than anything. With unit test, you write your test first, you run it to watch it fail, then you write your code, and you run it until you watch it turn green. Once it turns green, you may have to go in and refactor. And if you refactor and it turns red, keep working at it until it gets green again, until you're happy with it. It may seem like it takes a long time to do, and it's much more fun just to go ahead and code, but I guarantee you that in the future, if you are going to be working with this thing, or if somebody else is going to work with this thing, or even if you're in a large corporation and somebody a couple of years down the road is going to be working with it, they're going to thank you a whole lot if you do this work up front. So that's pretty much all I want to talk about on the unit test. So I hope I hope everything was clear for you. Again, I'm not going to show you all the different unit tests. You got any comments or anything, please leave them in the comments. And thanks very much for watching. You keep on coding. Thanks for watching. Subscribe to this channel to view more videos. Click on the like button on this video and visit us at TheVirtuoid.com. Also, support us on Patreon, where you can get access to member-only videos. Links are down below. Again, thank you very much for watching, and keep on coding.